Just continuing from the fallout of Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn not happening.
I agree. Let's keep talking about it because it is fascinating.
Because there is another element to this as well. Of course, we've spoken about the promoter and the sanctioning body and their involvement. We've talked about the fighter and what the fighter needs to do next in order to move forward. But one thing that we haven't touched upon is that there was an undercard here. There were fighters that did absolutely nothing wrong whatsoever, that spent an awful amount of money on camps and training and the facilities to be on this card at the weekend. Now, I know from watching an interview that Eddie Hearn actually has done in the last 24 hours, that all of his side of the undercard, because it was a Matchroom Wasserman co-promotion, the Matchroom fighters have already been informed that they do have new dates for fights coming forward, and all those dates I think fall within a 4 to 6 week period. I apologise if I'm slightly exaggerating that. I know there's some out in 2 weeks, but it's about a 4 to 6 week period.
There's some out in Abu Dhabi and there's some up all over the place.
So they've been rebooked and they will go forward, and that is obviously because Matchroom have multiple shows and therefore they can squeeze certain fighters on here, there and everywhere and get them out. Hopefully it's for the same money. And nobody's losing out on anything, but they will obviously have to maybe pay for an extra 2 to 3 weeks in a training camp spent. Something, again, as we were thinking about it at the Fighter Hotel, I was thinking that those fighters have done nothing wrong and they should be compensated. It costs an awful amount of money to run a fight camp. I was speaking to one on the undercard, and listen, I don't want to name names and put anybody in an awkward position, but they were telling me that they took out a $3,000 loan in order to run their camp. And obviously, with not fighting on Saturday, that $3,000's right down the Swanee.
Do you know how difficult it is for these young fighters that are trying to, some of them trying to balance work with training, etc., and they're waiting for these opportunities to get these fights to pay the bills, because that's what essentially it is. They're paying the bills. You talked about the Eddie Hearn fighters there that have all been now rescheduled to fight on different bills, and some of them abroad and some of them over here, but he's done that. What about the opponents that they were boxing? Let's go on the flip side. What has happened to them? When are they getting rescheduled? When they're the ones that are struggling as well? They're the ones that are getting this opportunity on the big platform. Nothing's happening with them. It's very, very difficult for these undercard fighters. Trust me, I know how hard it is for these kids. A lot of people, the casuals won't understand. They think professional boxer earning a lot of money. Trust me, they don't. Nope. And they're not boxing regular enough to earn a living. And some of them are full-time pros. They struggle. This is a massive blow for the undercard, for the people that bought the tickets. It goes far wider.
Yeah, it does. But the other side of it is, look at the way our big boxing events are structured. They're so top heavy, aren't they?
Yeah.
And if the big fight falls through, and it's not like this in mixed martial arts, is it? If the main event falls through, the event generally goes ahead, doesn't it? Almost always goes ahead. And I think maybe that's something else to look at in boxing as well. If someone tests positive for a drug in a Wimbledon final, towards a Wimbledon final, they're going to be pulled out and an alternate's going to come in. There's always a recourse. Potentially, they could have put someone else in against Chris Eubank Jr. if they'd worked this out earlier as well.
Felix Cash.
Felix Cash. Why didn't they do that?
I think the problem you've got is the ringside seats that are being sold for anything up to $5,000, $8,000 at a time. And people are looking at it going, I didn't want to see that for $8,000. And that's
so we pay for an event, don't we? We get excited about an event. We get excited about the chemistry of two people. And that's what happened here. It crossed over to the mainstream. There was history in the making. There were 3 decades of history here, weren't there?
Sure.
And that adds to the layers of frustration and disappointment and sadness that we're all feeling and expressing.
We've got a caller, and I'm led to believe that the person that has rang in is actually linked to the undercard that should have taken place at the O2. Danny, welcome to the show. How are you?
Not too bad. A little bit annoyed, but I'm okay.
Talk me through your involvement with what would have been happening this evening, and obviously the cost and the things that you have now missed out on.
Well, look, I was part of a training team, and I spent 5 months of my time getting somebody on the undercard ready. Obviously, I'm now not there tonight, and nor is the fighter. And in simple terms, I think every fighter on that undercard should get their night's wages. Why should people like me, a coach, and why should fighters pick up the bill because of someone else's actions? How is that all right?
Well, it's not right, and
Yeah,
we
I
agree
totally
with you,
agree
and
with you, mate.
we've been expressing that, and it's an inexact and science, and there's weird algorithms with this, but there should be a compensation procedure. There's no question about
The
it.
stupid rule that they've got in place here, Dan, is that the fighters only get paid, and they get paid up to 30% of their purse if they step on the scales.
That's right.
In a situation like this, there should be some sort of system put in place where they do get compensation, because you've all been training. It was up to the final hour. We're talking 48 hours before the contest was meant to happen.
It's ridiculous.
And I agree with you, mate. I think there's it's
Have you
very,
sent-
very difficult.
Have you sent messages to Calisale and Eddie Hearn about this at all?
Do you think I can even speak to these guys? Listen, let me put it this way, and this is what I want to happen, and I'm interested to know what you'd think about this. And I've had conversations today with people who say, it will never happen, but this is my idea. As a trainer, I think the promoters should get together and they should all...
Oh, it's a shame.
Here we go. Oh, we've got you back. Say that. Whatever you were saying there, Dan, say it. You just dipped out,
Right.
signal-wise.
I want all of the promoters, the big guys, to put money in a fund to pay people like me who train people under their umbrella an amount of money per month per fighter. We should be supported. There's no
But then they've got
structure.
control over you, haven't they?
Dan, can I ask you a question, mate?
Yes, you can.
Was your fighter? Was it one? Is he
away
signed
fighter?
up?
Were you
Was
an
he an
away
away
fighter?
fighter or a home fighter? So was he under
Home
Eddie
fighter.
Hearn's banner? Or
Yeah,
he's a home
Eddie.
fighter.
Yeah, but Spencer, this is what I'm saying. Eddie can go back to his mansion. I'm driving my cab around London till 4 a.m, and I'm not crying about sacrifice. I'm a boxing man, but I'm crying about the structure. I had enough of it because my prediction is, without people like me, these fighters can't get trained, and then the sport will fall apart. Let's put it this way: do you ever see a black cab driver training a professional football player or a first team? Is there any people like me at Chelsea or Arsenal? No, there's not. Because I'm treated like a chimney sweep, and I had enough of it. There needs to be a union, and the board needs to do something, the promoters need to do something, then we need a voice.
Well, that's a whole other story, isn't it?
Well,
I
he's
mean,
definitely
that's what
onto
this is
something.
throwing up, isn't
He's
it?
definitely onto something, because it's a very difficult system that they go through. These young fighters that are trying to reach the heights that the top of the bills reach, they've got to go through that system, and it's a difficult journey. And when things like this happen,
Listen,
I agree with Danny. It's a massive blow.
Fight sports are a Machiavellian environment. Promotion always wins. It's a meat market. You know this. It'll never change. It's run like the Wild West. We don't have a world
But
sanctioning
is this time
body.
for change? That's the
It
point.
is time for change. We're about to lose amateur boxing in the Olympics. Maybe it is time for a big revolution, Mr. Catterall.
Fingers crossed, eh?